Okay, so there's this podcaster. His name is Danny Jones, and he has like 1 million followers on YouTube. And about a year ago, I started getting emails from his producer being like, Scott, we have to have you on our show. We want to talk about your reporting. And I was like, yeah, cool. I'll come on your podcast. I knew nothing about Danny Jones. But, whatever. I'll go on people's channels. I'll talk to basically anyone. But he said he had to interview me in person. I was like, I don't do in-person interviews unless I happen to be in the area, because why would I travel to do an interview that a webcam is just fine for? And they sent me just so many emails about, can we schedule this, or text messages, or all these things. And eventually I found a reason to be in Florida, which is my father occasionally rents a house in Sarasota. He's retired and all that stuff. And I figured, I could go to Tampa and then drive from Tampa down to Sarasota. So sure, I'll go on your podcast, Danny Jones. And that recording was going to happen actually this weekend. And just this morning, like 30 minutes ago, I got an email from Danny Jones's producer, guy named Steve Sanchez. And he says, sorry, we have to cancel at the last minute. We have to cancel at the last minute. But don't worry about reimbursing that crappy Frontier flight that we put on you. I was like, really? What happened? Is Danny okay? What's happening? And he wrote that he cites your accusations against Huberman as the reason. And this threw me a little bit for a loop, because I really could have taken or leave it being on Danny Jones's podcast. Like 15 minutes before that, I could have cared less. But then he cancels my appearance, and I look at the subject line of Steve Sanchez's email. It says, no subject off limits. Well, apparently one of the subjects which is off limits is accurately reporting Huberman's changing opinions on science relating to the sponsorship money that he gets. Also his, the various sexual abuse claims by multiple women that have been documented by multiple magazines as a thing. True issues with Andrew Huberman. And then, like a minute later, after getting this email, I was like, shit. I sort of wanted to be on his podcast to talk about the weirdness of the global influencer situation, because clearly Danny Jones is trying to court Andrew Huberman going on his podcast. And I actually Googled around. I was like, has Huberman been on Sanchez's or Danny Jones's podcast? And the only thing I found was one tweet from Huberman saying, I've never been on Danny Jones's podcast. So either he's in the lineup to come up, or he wants nothing to do with this guy, which might be the right suggestion. Now, if you look at Danny Jones's feed, there's one from 4 weeks ago, the 12,000 year solar cycle that resets Earth's civilizations, which is clearly bullshit, especially since human civilization has really only been around for 5,000 years or so, considering that's what the origin of writing. Obviously, agriculture goes before that. That sounds like some bullshit. Avi Loeb's been on there. He's a scientist who says that alien life was like that. Oumuamua, these comets traveling through our solar system were proof of alien life. And, he's on that sort of spicy Joe Rogan-y side of things. And anyway, I don't really care about being on his show, but I do care that there's an influencer network of people who want to gain clout, like these people who want to be on. There's this sort of discussion between people of playing this game of just accepting whatever is said by another influencer.
What are the top reasons that you believe that the moon landing was a hoax?
I have a longevity hack that will cure things.
You're supposed to get the balance of light in the eyes and on the skin. And when you're just disrupting that balance, that's when you get those basal cell anomalies that develop to be skin cancer.
Cure things. We can talk with the dead. I'm an ex-CIA agent who has some sort of bullshit story about how the world really works.
If I wanted to affect mass control, I only need to use a real weapon on 10 to 55, maybe 100 people. And then the sound of that weapon gets replayed on the news, the cricket sound, over and over and over.
And they all sort of parallel each other's narratives. But anyone who wants to go out and actually look at the veracity of claims of people on the internet, there's sort of a separate ecosystem for those people. So these two ecosystems, they don't really have any overlap, because so there's people who are like basically gullible and will believe anything, and there's other people who are like, maybe we should tell those gullible people that the world actually, science exists and like reality matters, and that people who are getting tons of money selling lies should be called out. Those two ecosystems don't actually combine. So what I'm seeing here is that Danny Jones, who says that nothing is off limits, well, the only thing that's off limits for Danny Jones is truth. So think about that. Anyway, I'm going to Tampa anyway because I'm going to see my dad, and so now I got a couple extra days hanging out there. If you know anything that's fun to do down in Tampa, let me know.